Tonight, I was not supposed to be here. I was just supposed to be heading up the games. The goal was to have a guest speaker every week, starting last week, obviously, with Dawn, who I heard did a great job. Yeah. And then tonight's guest, she had a, I don't know how serious it is, but she's been in the hospital since Saturday. So I got a text, an email, and it just said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do it next week. And she was real excited about it. But tonight, I'm just going to pick up where she left off, and we're going to talk about identity theft. You get on the internet, you see and hear, you know, don't do this, don't pay your bills on the internet, don't put your credit card because someone can steal that stuff. That's supposed to be really important stuff. And then on the other hand, you've got this guy coming out on the radio and he's giving you his social security number. And he dares you to try to do something with it because he has a program that will, you know, call the FBI or something like that. And that's identity theft that maybe some of you know and hear of. But today I'm going to kind of have a play on words. Tonight we're going to talk about and continue talking throughout this series, who are you? Who am I? Who I am. However you want to put it, who am you? As I put it on the notes for the staff. Our prayer, my hope is that at the end of this series, you have a better grasp on who you are deep down inside. Do you know what genealogy is? It's making a comeback. You know when they go through and they search for your family tree, and you go back and you go back and you can go back to, I guess, Adam and Eve, I don't know, Noah, his sons, which one you descended from, somewhere like that. And maybe somebody has like a great-great-grandfather or or there's always one historian in the family that knows everything. Anybody like that? Do you not have that? Because I really, if you shook a tree hard enough, you would see that my family tree is full of nuts. Okay? But there's a show on NBC. He just got it. Okay. There's a show on NBC. And it doesn't get the average person, but it's called Who Do You Think You Are? And it goes through and it gets people like Lisa Kudrow, Rosie O'Donnell, Tim McGraw, etc., different movie stars who want to dive into, see where their heritage came from. In one of the episodes, Tim McGraw, he found out that his great-great-great-grandfather worked with the stable boy who kept a journal, and they both knew George Washington. And for an hour, they traced back all this stuff. Okay, cool. There was one episode, and I don't remember who the character was, but they traced all the way back, and they found out that her ancestors owned slaves. And she was devastated. Like, she was seriously mortified at this. Good show. I don't know if it's on anymore, but anyway, Sarah Jessica Parker She went back, and if you guys know who she is, you will not be surprised at all that she somehow or another is related to a witch. And that explains the beak. It is what it is. Okay? But who do you think you are? Or does it matter? Does it matter if you trace things all the way back to the umpteen hundreds? Or does it matter who you are? That's a question for tonight, or at least one of them. This has opened up like a great debate ever throughout religious leaders of time, tracing back to who goes to where, And if you guys know, there are some people out there who want to trace you all the way back till you were a molecule in the ground, and then you evolved into a fish, and then a fish with feet, and then etc., etc., etc. Okay? And then you turn out to be you. Okay. There are a lot of other people that have all their little things. Now, of course, we are going to believe, obviously, of what the Bible tells us. In John 8, 31 through 33, and 40 to 47, we jump around, but this is from the Message. And again, I love the Message. But it starts out, Jesus turned to the Jews who had claimed to believe in him. Did you get that? They claimed to believe in him. And he says, if you stick with this, living out what I tell you, you are my disciples for sure. Then you will experience for yourself the truth, and the truth will free you. Suddenly they were surprised and they said, but we're descendants of Abraham. We've never been slaves to anyone. How can you say the truth will set you free? And Jesus answered them, if you were Abraham's children, you would have been doing the things Abraham did. And yet here you are trying to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth that he got straight from God. Abraham never did that sort of thing. You persist in repeating the works of your father. And then they yelled out, we're not bastards. We have a legitimate father, the one and only God. If God were your father, said Jesus, you would love me, for I come from God and arrived here. I didn't come on my own. He sent me. Why can't you understand one word I say? And Jesus turned and he said, here's why you can't handle it. You're from your father, the devil. And all you want to do is please the devil. He was a killer from the very start. He couldn't stand the truth because there wasn't a shred of truth in him. When the liar speaks, he makes it up out of his lying nature and fills the world with his lies. I arrive on the scene. I tell you the plain truth, and you refuse to have a thing to do with me. Can any one of you convict me of a single misleading word, a single sinful act? But I'm telling you the truth. Why don't you believe me? Anyone on God's side listens to God's words. This is why you're not listening, because you're not on God's side. So here's this awesome argument taking place. It's one of these, well, who do you think you are arguments. And I wonder if the Pharisees were just head bobbing, like some of you I've seen standing outside, yelling, screaming. How? Jesus draws this spiritual genealogy line in the sand that involves two fathers. Father number one is God in heaven. And he tells them that his descendants are all those who love Jesus. and have trusted Him for salvation. And then we have father number 2, the devil, who has filled the world with lies. Now, according to Jesus, He's not saying, and I had to read this a couple times, He's not saying that all of the Jews at that time were Satanists. He's not saying that. But He is telling them, who do you listen to? Who are you a descendant of? He's also saying that from a spiritual perspective, all genealogies go back to one of the two sources, either God or the devil. That's my life. If I stood up here and filled your head and told you, if you haven't heard my testimony, sorry, tonight's not the night. Most of you have heard it. But I can trace back to a time when I said I was with God, but instead I was doing the things of the devil. I was living in the world and using the devil's rules. Before I trusted Christ for salvation, I was acting like my father, the devil. I lied. I didn't listen to God. None of that stuff mattered. But at the very moment of my salvation, the records of my old family were erased. And then I was with my new family, with my new father. My sins were forgiven. And so then I wonder, can things change? Can people change? Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. Didn't matter what my ancestors were, what they followed, what they did. You might, I'm even interested to know how far back you guys really study your culture. How far back do you even know your culture? And does it matter where you're from? Really? But today we're talking more about who you are. Which father do you live with? And now knowing that our unsaved friends and family, we all have them that are trapped in the family of the world, we'll call it, with a spiritually abusive father. Say, think about some of those things. Now, how many of you know people like this? Matthew 4:16. The people living in darkness. We all know them. And they have seen a great light. There are people in this room. You were living in darkness once upon a time. Maybe not that long ago. And you saw a great light. And you took it. You left one family, went into another. The records were erased. Those who are living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. From that time on, Jesus began to preach. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Throughout the scriptures, it keeps talking about different things, different records of Jesus that said He rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son that He loves. In 2 Corinthians, it said that they cannot see the light of the gospel, the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, because they were blinded. And the beginning part of that says they were blinded because they did not believe. They were unbelievers. Students, wherever you are, whomever you are, whatever you're doing today, God, and only God, has the power to change things. We can change. Once you identify who you are, what your identity is, you can change it. Today, your identity might be here. I'm on the even road, okay? I mean, I'm trying my best, and I'm doing okay, but I could be better. Maybe some of us in this room, man, we're just down today. We're having a bad day. I'll go to the cave and I'll, go hang out with some friends. Maybe I'll get up a little. Maybe some of you are like, you know what? I am doing the best I can. I'm in my Bible. I am praying. That's awesome. But don't be stuck here. Keep pushing it. Keep going higher. It's with God that you can... Some people think that they can never change. If someone is a good person or a bad person, they think they don't have the power to change. You guys believe in that? You think that maybe today you're a bad person and tomorrow there's no way you can be a good person because you were a bad person 24 hours ago. I hope that's wrong. There's another clip that they're going to show you here real fast. Go ahead and play that, please. How many of you, don't raise your hand, can relate to that? Based on the clothes you wear, people look at you. It's how you act, how you dress, how you act. You put on a mask and you're somebody different. Maybe for some of you, when you walk into this building, you've put on a mask. I'm a church boy now. I carry my Bible. And as soon as I leave and I get back home, and you're somebody different with your friends, and you're somebody different, but who are you really? Are you confused? How many of you think that God doesn't mind if I go with the flow as long as I don't do anything bad? What is that really? A great movie from the 80s, The Breakfast Club. Don't laugh, it's good. If you don't know this movie, don't rent it. Wait till it comes on television and watch it on TV. I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't watch. I'm just saying. But it's a group of kids who all have Saturday detention. I know some of you in here can relate all too much. Look at everyone looking down. There are people hiding their eyes and not wanting to look up. That's all right. But they had Saturday detention, and the guy just locks them in the library. But they start talking, they start getting to know each other. And one thing that I loved about this movie is that they put a bad mark on cliques. I hated cliques. Oh, I still hate cliques. If there's none here that we know of, but if there was a clique forming, oh, we have the Clique Busters. Who are you gonna call? That's right. But this movie, the way they were seen, the way they were perceived by each other, the little preppy girl, how everyone looked up to her, and then the nerdy kid who brought a flare gun to school. Okay, Rich, go ahead. Nonetheless, they were judged by the way they looked, by the way they acted, by the people they hung out with. Several years ago, I challenged students from, and there might be some here today, and I said, I dare you to go to school and be your own clique, not because you're a jock or because you're a book nerd or because of music or nothing like that, but be a group of Christians who sat together at lunchtime and prayed before a meal. Man, make a noise. Amen. That movie, To Save a Life, was a great example of that, and we showed it here before. We look at Luke. Here's just how I want, if you think because you are, however old you are, and there's no way you can change. I can't change anything. Tonight I want to wrap up this just in case you're thinking this way. You can't change. There's a man in the Bible. There's a lot of men in the Bible. But there's a man called Peter. Now they arrested him and they led him to the high priest's residence. And Peter was following far behind. And the guards, they lit a fire in the courtyard and they sat around it. And Peter joined them there. Now, Peter was one of Jesus' disciples. And what you don't know, and I'll just fill it in real fast, they're having this little dinner, the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper, okay? And Jesus stands up and says, one of you is going to deny me. And they were all like, what? Who? Must be him. No, don't point fingers. And Peter said, is it I? Like, how could that be? Like, I'm one of you 12, man. And then it was told to Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. That's impossible, Jesus. I've been hanging out with you for 3 years. How can you say that? I'm hurt. As the story goes, Peter was sitting with some of the guards around the fire, and a servant girl noticed him and began staring at him, and she said, that man was one of Jesus' followers. And Peter denied it. Woman, I don't even know the man. After a while, someone else looked at him and said, you must be one of them. And Peter, he got all gangster and said, no man, I'm not. An hour later, someone else insisted, this must be one of Jesus' disciples because he is a Galilean too. And Peter said, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And as soon as he said these words, the rooster crowed. In that moment, the Lord turned and looked at Peter. It would have been so cool if Jesus would have said, busted. Jesus told them it was going to happen. Jesus said, you are going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. Then Peter, later in Acts, listen again. Much later, Jesus rose from the grave and he went to heaven. Now, this is the new Peter. Okay? It wasn't like 3 years wasn't enough, but now the new and improved Peter. Okay? Later, after Jesus has ascended into heaven, in Acts 2 it says, Peter stepped forward with the 11 other apostles, and he shouted to the crowd, listen carefully, all you fellow Jews and residents of Jerusalem. Make no mistake about this. And then Peter goes on and he gives this huge speech. Like, man, he was telling the Jews that this Jesus was the real deal.